Hello and welcome to Iowa Primetime Live. Iowa at the voice of college football, presented by FanDuel, of course. My name is Zach Heine. I thank you for tuning in to the show tonight. We got a lot to get into. Transfer portal craziness. Iowa names a new special teams coordinator. Some key returns to the roster next year, as well as a quick discussion on the national championship game coming up later in the show. As I mentioned earlier, this is Iowa Primetime Live, Iowa at the voice of college football, brought to you by FanDuel. Make sure you're following me on social on X at Zach_Heine. You can follow my written work at Hawkeyes Wire. And of course, make sure you're following the voice of college football at the VOCFB at all of those social media apps you see in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you're not able to catch the show live or have to head out early or come back late, the entire show is going to be in an audio-only platform on Spotify and Apple Podcast after we're done. So if you have to dip out early or not able to catch the entire show, make sure you check us out on those spots as well so you can hear the rest of the show. Packed show today, mainly focusing on the transfer portal for Iowa because we are in that, kind of phase of the offseason where the portal is still live. There's still things going on, people entering, people coming in. Iowa's assembling quite the class that we'll talk about here in just a second, but we're not close enough to spring practices or the NFL draft or anything like that to speculate there. But Iowa's 2026 roster is starting to come into its own with the transfer portal class, which we'll waste no more time jumping right into that because the portal is where things are going down. And Iowa is very quietly assembling a pretty good transfer portal class for 2026. They haven't gotten the big star names in the portal. They haven't gotten the SEC All-American who entered the portal and he's coming to Iowa, or the big quarterback name, or anyone like that. But that's just, I don't think that's how Iowa's going to roll in the portal, at least as long as Kirk Ferentz is the head coach. That's just not their MO. And Iowa is a developmental program, and they build themselves and they pride themselves on being able to bring in guys that are looked past, guys that, don't get the respect that they deserve from other programs. And they come to Iowa and they become stars. And so that's what Iowa's 2026 portal class is all about. People, I've seen a lot of people on social media complaining that Iowa's just getting FCS players, or they're getting very low level FBS players, and that they won't be able to translate to the Big Ten. And to those people, I ask, have you watched Iowa football the last couple of years? With the transfer portal being what it is. I mean, Caden Weechin was a JUCO transfer, and he turned into the best return man in the entire country. He's going to be on an NFL roster. A guy like a Jonah Pace on the D line was very, very solid. Yeah, he didn't have the big counting stats, but he was starting on a very talented Iowa defensive line, and he transferred in from Western Michigan last year. Like, Iowa's done it with these guys in the portal before. Yeah, it hasn't quite worked out at wide receiver yet with some of those names. But Iowa's done this before. They're very comfortable, and they're assembling. I think this is their biggest transfer portal class of the last couple of years. And there's a lot of guys to be really excited about. So let's jump into the transfer portal tracker. When I talked to you last Thursday, Iowa had 5 commits in their transfer portal class. They got a 6th one actually during the show with Lance Ingold, a Northern Illinois defensive lineman, committing during the show. So they had 6 commits through the portal by the end of our show last week. And since then, they have added another 5 players. And there's a lot of excitement among these 5 players. Let's pull up the transfer portal tracker here on Hawkeyes Wire. Of course, make sure you're checking out Hawkeyes Wire for all of your Iowa athletics needs: football, basketball, wrestling, Indiana Fever, NFL Hawks, all that stuff. Hawkeyes Wire is your one-stop shop for all of that. Let's pull it up here. All right. The transfer portal tracker. From right above Lance Ingold, who we covered on the show last week, Iowa picked up James Madison transfer safety Tyler Brown. And Tyler Brown last year, as a sophomore at James Madison, a JMU team that, by the way, made the college football playoff, won their conference, and hung around better than with Oregon than I think a lot of people give them credit for. And Tyler Brown was a big reason why they had a great season last year. He had 80 total tackles, six passes broken up, 1 sack, and a pick. And he had offers from a lot of other pretty premier programs: UCLA, Florida State, Lane Kiffin down there at LSU, Wisconsin in the Big Ten, among others. And so Iowa was able to win that battle for Tyler Brown. And he's going to join a steadily growing group of safeties that Iowa has I brought in now. Tyler Brown, Anthony Hawkins from Villanova, and one more that we'll get into here in a little bit. But Tyler Brown, with Cohen Entry gone, with Xavier Wampa graduating, Iowa needed to revamp that safety room desperately. And they're doing a pretty good job of that so far. These guys, have a lot of talent. They stood out on these lower level FBS or FCS defenses, and in a Phil Parker scheme, in a Phil Parker defense, surrounded by a lot of other talent, these guys are going to flourish. They're going to flourish. You'll know these names. You'll know Anthony Hawkins. You'll be familiar with Tyler Brown by the end of the 2026 season. I can guarantee that. These guys are legit. Next up, wide receiver Tony Diaz. This was a guy that a lot of people had their eyes on for Iowa to pick up. There was some optimism that he would pick the Hawkeyes, and he did. The Texas Rio Grande Valley wide receiver, as a freshman last year, 67 grabs, 881 yards, and 11 touchdowns. 5'11", 176-pound receiver. He's going to have 3 years of eligibility remaining, and I think Tony Diaz is going to be a guy, along with another receiver that we'll talk about here in a little bit. I think Tony Diaz is going to be a guy to come in and compete for snaps right away. Because Iowa, let's face it, they're pretty thin right now at wide receiver, with Seth Anderson and Caden Weechin and Sam Phillips all gone. And Jacob Gill as well. Iowa is, they've lost a lot of receivers to graduation. They bring back Reese Vander Zee, who I love as a prospect. Dayton Howard is another guy that I'm excited about. But Tony Diaz kind of fits that slot receiver role, which is very exciting, because I think with Vander Zee and with Howard, you have X receivers on the outside. Those guys are 6'4", 6'5", respectively. I go up and grab it, jump ball, contested catch specialist, especially RVZ, but we've seen Dayton Howard do that as well. I think those are going to be your outside X receivers. And then Tony Diaz kind of slots in perfectly in the slot. We're going to be able to feast off of more one-on-one matchups, because you also have DJ Vanami, coming back in that tight end room, Thomas Meyer as well. They're going to those are two guys who are going to demand a lot of attention, along with Iowa's running game as well. So I think Tony Diaz could come in and contribute right away and play big snaps in a Tim Lester offense. Iowa is assembling pieces in this offense. We'll talk about this after we get through the portal stuff. But whoever the quarterback is for Iowa in 2026 is going to have weapons to work with, a lot of weapons to work with. And, we'll see how, he comes together with that. but Iowa is doing a great job of replenishing the cupboard, especially in the wide receiver room. They needed a couple guys at least in that room, and they got it. Next up, running back L.J. Phillips Jr. If you're not familiar with L.J. Phillips Jr., you better get familiar because this kid is talented. He's a 5'9", 225-pound running back, so kind of a bruiser, right there. But don't mistake that for him not having any kind of speed. He led the FCS last year with 1,920 yards and 19 touchdowns on the ground at South Dakota. He also had 28 grabs for 195 yards and a receiving touchdown as well. He was a first-team All-American over there at South Dakota. L.J. Phillips Jr. is going to be a good one at Iowa. He kind of fits that Iowa running back mold that we've seen so many guys come in and have success with Jazz Patterson gone and Williams gone as well. Not Xavier Williams or Washington, Terrell Washington Jr. Sorry, Xavier Williams is not gone. He's back along with Kamari Molden and Nathan McNeil. Terrell Washington Jr. and Jazz Patterson are gone, and so you need one more name probably in that running back room. And L.J. Phillips fits the mold immensely. I think he's going to be the guy. We've seen Iowa kind of rotate in backs, and honestly, if assuming health for everyone, it wouldn't surprise me to see Iowa using 3 to 4 running backs very consistently. I think Kamari Molden is your starter, your first and second down back. Mixing in there with Xavier Williams, Nathan McNeil, I think could really turn into kind of a third down back specialist. With his speed, with his ability to potentially get out in space and run maybe as a pass catcher as well on third and longs as a dump off option. And then L.J. Phillips Jr. as well, going to be able to hop in there and contribute right away in that room, which I think is very exciting. And I wouldn't sleep on L.J. Phillips Jr. and his ability to be able to contribute to this roster in 2026. Next up is that third safety I was talking about, Xavier Styles. Comes to Iowa from Robert Morris, a 6'2", 190 pound at safety. He tallied 42 total tackles, had 7 passes on defense, 2 forced fumbles, and a pick last year at Robert Morris. He has multiple years of eligibility as well. And you're going to see kind of a theme here with Iowa's transfer portal classes. They're getting guys with multiple years of eligibility. And I think don't let that go under the radar. I think that's really important. I think that's intentional from Kirk Ferentz and company. This is not just like a randomly, all the guys that we wanted happen to have multiple years of eligibility. No, Iowa's going out and getting guys that they're going to potentially be able to have for numerous seasons, which is big. And it's not always a guarantee. We know in college football these days, it's not a guarantee that someone's there from year to year to year. There's so many things that can go into it, and anyone can hop in the portal at any time. But I was banking on getting these guys into the program and them finding a home, them finding a fit, them being able to contribute. And then you have them for multiple years. And then you go get the next guy next year for multiple years. And you keep replenishing the cupboard through that. This is very intentional from Iowa. This is not, just they happen to luck into, all of their targets, just happen to have some extra eligibility. No, Iowa wants this for their program. This is how Kirk Ferentz builds his program. And so these guys, will be contributors year one, and then you're hoping maybe year two they become stars. And and you keep building and replenishing from there. It's very intentional from Iowa. But Xavier Styles is that third safety. So Iowa, with Entringer and Wampa gone, they have rebuilt that room. They've got 3 guys that they feel good about coming in and contributing right away. I know that with Tyler Brown, I believe, the safety from James Madison that we talked about earlier, one of my co-writers at Hawkeyes, Wire, Riley Donald, did a film breakdown on him. And I would recommend, if you are an Iowa fan and you're looking to learn a bit more about each of these transfer portal recruits and their role on the team, check out Riley's film breakdown. He's doing it for each commit in the portal at Hawkeyes Wire. It's really, really a fun read to see, a tale of the tape, how, what are they going to bring to this program? Where does he think they're going to fit in on the 2026 roster? And he talked about Tyler Brown, the James Madison safety, kind of being more positioned to play the cash. So maybe Iowa shifts Zach Lutmer back to safety or over to corner, and they have Tyler Brown play the cash. Regardless, they're going to have guys that have positional versatility and flexibility, which is ideal in a Phil Parker scheme. You want guys who can be able to shift out from one spot to the other, from cash to safety, from safety to cash. You want to be able to rotate these guys around. And I think a lot of these styles, as my man Kelvin Fisher says, 90 PFF coverage grade, he kind of profiles as that traditional backline safety. Maybe Tyler Brown's playing at your cash. Same with Anthony Hawkins back there at safety. Zach Lutmer can kind of rotate around wherever he's needed. He can kind of be a chess piece for Phil Parker to play with and to put Zach Lutmer wherever he wants to go. And I think it's going to end up with an all-conference nod for Zach Lutmer. I was very high on him heading into the 2025 season, and I was right about that. And I'm even more high on his potential heading into next year. I think he'll be an NFL guy eventually. But yeah, Xavier Styles, exciting transfer. In the last one to talk about, Evan James, the wide receiver from Furman. He had 65 grabs for 796 yards at Furman during his true freshman season. With also caught some touchdown grabs as well. He had 7 of them. Excuse me. He was named an FCS freshman All-American, just like Anthony Hawkins was. Evan James, another guy to come into that wide receiver room alongside Tony Diaz, alongside the returners and RVZ and Dayton Howard. Again, Iowa building up this room. Evan James, again, kind of that similar, it's a similar frame to Diaz at 5'11", 170 pounds. I'm sure that he'll add on a bit more, in the offseason with the Iowa strength program. But Evan James profiles to be a guy who could contribute at Iowa in 2026, but I think he might be more of a 2027 guy. But Iowa's not very deep at receiver, so it would not shock me at all if James finds his way onto the field for some nice reps in 2026. But if you had to ask me right now, if you said, Zach, put your money down for who's going to have the bigger impact in 2026, I would say right now it would be Diaz. Speaking of putting some money down, if you're not familiar, we are sponsored by FanDuel, your sports book for all of your sports betting needs. And the national championship game is coming up soon. Indiana and Miami, down in Miami. It's basically a home game for the Hurricanes, but they're the away team technically because of the lower seed. It all works out. But if you're looking to put some money down on the national title game so that you can become a winner as well, check out FanDuel for the latest odds. They have Indiana as an 8.5-point favorite, and Indiana is minus 350 on the money line. The over-under is set at 47.5, with the under being the slight favorite. This is an interesting line to me. Indiana's been the best team in the country for basically the entire season. They have mowed down competition in the playoff, taking down Alabama and Oregon with ease. And Miami was almost not even here. Entering a selection Sunday, they were not even sure if they were going to make it. They were on the outside looking in, heading into the selection show. And they make it in over Notre Dame. A lot of people were mad about that. But wow, does the committee look like geniuses right now as Miami has gone on. I don't even want to call it a, a Cinderella run because they're a really good team, but as a 10 seed, going on the road, taking down Texas A&M, and then they play Georgia, or not Georgia, excuse me. Miami plays Ohio State and takes down the Buckeyes, and then and then they play Ole Miss, a very hot Rebels team, and they beat them too. And now they're here playing Indiana. Do they have one more upset in them? Does Mario Cristobal have one more trick up his sleeve? There's a lot of talent on that Hurricanes roster. Malachi Toney, Ruben Bain, Carson Beck is your quarterback. I really like the running back, Mark Fletcher. Do they have enough to contend with the Heisman Trophy winner, Fernando Mendoza, and the rest of that stacked Indiana roster? And my answer is I don't think so. I think Indiana's going to be. I can't even believe I'm about to say these words. I think Indiana is going to win the college football national championship on Monday night. It sounds so surreal to even just say that, but I mean they've been dominant. Oregon and Alabama were good teams, and Indiana made it look like they were playing Rutgers or Purdue. Like they put in the work on those guys. And Miami is really, really good, but let's be honest, like let's not forget they were on the outside looking in, heading into the playoffs. Like this team is beatable. Indiana so far has looked almost unbeatable, except for a couple near hiccups, including at Iowa and at Penn State. And this will be it'll be basically a home game for Miami. And Indiana fans will travel well, though, for this. But, you expect there to be more Hurricanes fans there than Hoosiers fans for the first time all playoffs. And Indiana fans have traveled so much better than Alabama and Oregon fans in both of their games. But even with more Hurricane fans there, I just think Indiana's the better team. They're the better team. I think Miami is slightly better on the D line, and maybe the O line is close, but I like Indiana everywhere else, and it just seems like it's a team of destiny. Like ever since they snuck by Iowa at Kinnick Stadium in late September, it's just kind of felt like this team was a team of destiny, and I think that destiny comes true. And I think they not only win, but I think they cover that 8.5 point spread that's currently on FanDuel. So if you're asking me, give me Indiana and the points on Monday night. And if you want to make a little money yourself, check out FanDuel for all of your betting needs. All right, we've gone through the transfer portal for the Hawkeyes in 2026. We have gone through a little bit of a national championship preview. Iowa has named their special teams coordinator for the 2026 season. We're going to talk about that, and I'm going to put the link in the chat. It is our call-in show. I forgot to mention that until now, but if you want to hop on, talk about anything Iowa football related, transfer portal, guys going to the draft, guys who have left in the portal, a 2026 preview, whatever you want to talk about Iowa football related, that link is in the chat right now. You just put that into your search or into your search bar, and it'll bring you on to a StreamYard page, or I'll be able to bring you on stage and be able to talk about anything you want to as related to Iowa football. We're going to jump into the new special teams coordinator. Who's replacing LeVar Woods in 2026 for the Hawkeyes? We'll be able to find out, and we'll talk all about it right after this.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link, and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the voice of college football.
And thank you to Mark Rogers for that message. By the way, if you're enjoying my show, which I hope that you are, if you're still here, you'll probably enjoy the other shows we have on our Iowa at the Voice of College Football channel. Specifically on Tuesdays, we have Iowa Hawkeyes Live with Mark Rogers and Corey Bratta from the Hawkeye of the Storm. They do a great job there on that show, and they followed up, I believe, with the Big Ten show as well. And so if you want more Iowa football talk, more Big Ten football talk, make sure to check out Mark and Corey on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. I believe it's 4 p.m. Central Time. They do a great job with their show. They're very interactive, taking calls, taking comments. And so if you want more Iowa football during this offseason, this is the place to be. Iowa Hawkeyes Live on Tuesday afternoon, and of course Iowa Primetime Live at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time every Thursday. So let's hit the comments here real quick. Kelvin Fisher says Beagley, DT, McLaughlin visiting now, 2 punters to come. Yes, Beagley is the SMU wide receiver. He was a freshman last year, didn't play, but I did see that Tony Diaz. I tweeted at him and said to come home. And so the recruiting in the program has already started for him. Maybe another receiver to come. D tackle, Iowa does still need a bit more depth there. They got Bryce Stevenson. They got the Northern Illinois transfer as well. Still need a couple more guys, you would assume, on that D line. And so, it wouldn't surprise me if we get those commitments here relatively soon. McLaughlin, I believe, is he the long snapper commit or prospect? I might be mixing up my players now, but Iowa potentially in the running for a long snapper, and then 2 punters to come. We do know that Iowa needs a punter with Reese Dakin gone, and so they're going to be hosting a couple guys. According to Kelvin Fisher, who is wired in, he knows what he's talking about, and so I expect a punter to come here pretty soon. He also says 5 to come, 3 of them being high schoolers. So Iowa not done yet in the portal and in their recruiting class for 2026. As Kirk Ferentz, man, he's putting in some work. He is. A lot of people get on Kirk Ferentz for his style of coaching, for his like some people would say that he's coaching scared, that he wants to win every game 10-7. It's not true, but a lot of people get on Kirk Ferentz for being old-fashioned, for being old, stuck in his ways. But you have to give Kirk Ferentz a lot of credit for what he's doing with the portal right now, because the portal is how you build your roster now. Yes, you need to recruit high schoolers. It's still very important. But the portal is becoming just as, if not more important, in the modern realm of college football than high school recruiting. And it would have been very easy for Kirk Ferentz to say, "Nah, I'm not doing the portal. I'm going to keep doing it the way I've done it for 25 years, and I'm not changing my ways for this." But no, he is hitting the portal. He is bringing in guys that are talented, that have upside, and that they have multiple years of eligibility. And so he can build this, because it's basically like high school recruits. He's basically getting freshmen that he's going to be able to have for 2, 3, maybe even 4 years out of the portal. He is adjusting, and Kirk Ferentz deserves a lot of credit for that. He's not going to get a lot of credit from Iowa fans, but just take a look at this portal class. It's good. It's deep. It addresses needs. Kirk Ferentz is, should be getting a lot of credit for that. So I hope that Iowa fans give him his due. Give him his flowers there with that. He's adjusting to the modern day of college football. Bringing in Tim Lester is another one of those moves that kind of shows me that, Kirk Ferentz is here to coach in 2026 and beyond. Like he gets it. Yes, is he still going to do some things his way and an old-fashioned style? Yes. But that makes him Kirk. And he's adjusting where you want him to adjust. He's getting with the program in terms of modern day offense. He's hitting he's hitting the portal hard. He's getting a bit more aggressive even on fourth downs. He's adjusting. He is evolving into the final boss, the final stage of his Hall of Fame legendary coaching career. And he can still kick it. And he deserves a lot of credit for what he's done with this portal class. And he has named, not Kirk Ferentz specifically, but Iowa football have officially named their special teams coordinator for 2026. LeVar Woods is gone off to Michigan State to be their special teams coordinator and assistant head coach. And Iowa keeps it in-house with the hiring of their new special teams coordinator, Chris Polizzi. My apologies if I get that name wrong. According to Matt Zenitz of CBS Sports, Chris Polizzi is expected to be named as the special teams coordinator for Iowa in 2026. If you're not familiar with Chris Polizzi, I don't blame you. He's been at Iowa for 1 year. He was there, of course, last year in 2025 as a defensive analyst. But he was a grad assistant at Iowa for a couple of years from 2012 to 2014. He's been around. He has been around a lot. He was at UCLA as a secondary coach. At one point, he was at UT Martin as a defensive coordinator in 2021 and 2022. He was at Tulsa as a D coordinator in 2023, 2024. He came back to Iowa last year, as a defensive analyst, and now he is the special teams coordinator. Iowa, not surprisingly, keeps it in-house, and I think this is a very solid move. He knows the program. He knows the style like the brand of football that Iowa wants to play. Being there as a GA for a couple of years and then coming back last year as a defensive analyst. And he's kind of following that LeVar Woods, timeline. LeVar Woods, is a great story with him being an administrative assistant at Iowa for 4 years, and then, and then he was like a linebackers coach and assistant special teams coach, and then he was officially named the coordinator a few years later. So Polizzi, it's kind of following that similar, I'm a defensive coach for a little while, and then I'm going to hop over to special teams like LeVar Woods. And LeVar Woods' hire worked out very well. So Chris Polizzi, I have some high hopes for that room. He's got to work with Kirk Ferentz and the portal for filling out that unit that he's going to be coaching. Iowa's kickers are in a good spot. Eli Ozick from North Dakota State has transferred in, as well as they have another walk-on kicker who Kelvin Fisher says is pretty good. So Iowa's going to have a few guys there to compete for that role. Then they need to figure out the punter and then the return man. Keep an eye on Jackson Nave on the roster as a return man. A very similar story to Caden Weechin. He was at Iowa Western for a couple of years, great return guy, and then came to Iowa last year. Didn't do too much his first year in the program, just like Caden Weechin. We know in year two is when things clicked for Weechin. So keep an eye on Jackson Nave, but potentially as that next great return man at Iowa. As Kelvin clarifies his comment from earlier, The D tackle, Ola Gagu, is from Dakota School. 2 years left in Iowa City right now. So potentially Iowa landing this kid pretty soon. McLaughlin was the long snapper, the St. Louis high school long snapper, visiting Iowa. I think he was like a 4.5 star recruit, which, for the long snappers, like they don't have, I think they have their own like special teams like site that they get their stars from. So 4.5 star recruit, pretty good long snapper. Iowa looking to bring some competition in after they had a few issues with that position in 2025. And Kelvin also says Aussie punter, high school kid, and probably the Simpson punter need two. And so I was hosting a couple different guys who are in the portal at the punter spot. They're going to get someone to fill that role pretty well for new coordinator Chris Pelizzi. It is our call-in show tonight. I have the link in the chat for anyone who wants to hop on and talk about Iowa football. As we've gone over the portal class that Kirk Ferentz has brought in for 2026, we talked about the national championship game. We talked about the new special teams coordinator, Chris Pelizzi, as well. And let's talk about next year's roster, because I talked about earlier. Before I get into that, I want to mention as well that Cade Pieper is back next year, officially announced. Matt Zenitz of CBS Sports breaking that news. Like, not only is Cade Pieper returning to Iowa next year after receiving a lot of NFL buzz, but that he's moving from right guard to center. That is right. Iowa has got their next great center. There's a lot of people in the program who are very excited about Cade Pieper's potential at center. He was great at right guard last year, and now he's going over there to replace Logan Jones at center. And I was talking in our Hawkeye Wire group chat about this last night. But Iowa very quickly, kind of sneakily, is becoming center U. Alongside being tight end U over the last decade or so. You think about James Daniels, a great center at Iowa who was drafted in the NFL. He played some good years with the Bears and is still in the league now. And then you think about Tyler Linderbaum, who's great, fantastic at Iowa. And now he's one of the best centers in the entire NFL with the Ravens. And he's going to be in for a massive payday. He's going to get, some lucky team is going to back the Brinks truck up for Tyler Linderbaum this offseason. He's going to get paid. Logan Jones is off to the NFL. He's going to be a good one there as well, I think. And now Cade Pieper, with all the talent in the world, is shifting from right guard over to center. He could easily be an NFL draft pick next year as well. So very, very quickly and very quietly, Iowa could potentially have 4 different centers in the NFL by next season in 2027. That's pretty darn good. For a program that prides itself on the offensive line, that is impressive. And you're probably going to have a couple more guys this year drafted. James Dunker for sure is at worst a day 2 pick, and he might even make his way into round 1 discussions with a strong Senior Bowl performance. Bo Stevens, I could easily see being drafted at some point. Obviously, Logan Jones going to be drafted. Pieper next year. Like, we could be looking back. Heck, even Trevor Locke potentially in a couple of years if he keeps playing and developing. We could look back on a couple of years at the still more award-winning offensive line and be like, wow, there were 5 NFL offensive linemen on that offensive line at one time starting. Like, it's insane. It's insane. And as Kelvin Fisher hops in here with some more NFL centers or potential NFL centers, Hilgenbergs, Devlin, Wegman, Nelson, Ferentz, Blythe, Nelson, Daniels, Linderbaum, Jones, Pieper, Iowa, center U. I'm branding it. I'm trademarking it right now. Iowa is center U. I have not done any extra research on that. I don't know what other teams, what other programs have put other guys in there. But I mean, look at that names from Kelvin Fisher right there over the Kirk Ferentz tenure. Impressive, very, very impressive. And so Iowa, let's talk about it. As Kelvin Fisher says, center you, tight end you, walk on you. Yeah, Iowa does a great job with those walk-ons as well. Fantastic job. The quarterback position. The quarterback position, people are always asking me about it. I have non-Iowa fans asking me daily about it. Obviously, in Iowa circles, people are asking, what's Iowa going to do? Who's the quarterback in 2026? Mark Gronowski is gone. He was great in his 1 year there for the most part. He was great. Where does Iowa go next? Who do they go with next? Do they get someone in? Do they get someone in the portal? And my short answer is no. They are not going into the portal. I don't believe. If they're going into the portal for a quarterback, they would have them already. Iowa is trusting the guys on the roster for next year. And more specifically, they are trusting in Hank Brown and Jeremy Hecklinski. I would bet very, very, very good money, and I would sleep very well at night after placing this bet on one of those two guys being your starting quarterback in week 1 next season. And I know that's not gonna excite some people because they didn't like what they saw in limited action from Brown and Hecklinski. But let me say this. There's no way you can judge either of those two guys based on what you saw in 2025. There's no way you can watch either of them and what they did on the field in very limited action in 2025 and make a call on whether or not they're going to be a good starting quarterback at Iowa. Hank Brown was thrown in an awful situation. Fourth quarter, tie game, Indiana, the potential national champions in town. Hank Brown thrown into the game. Hey, go win the game. He hadn't played since UMass. And you go from UMass to Indiana in the fourth quarter of a tie game at home. Hey, kid, go win the game. Yeah, he's going to struggle. What do you think? He didn't really get a chance outside of that either. He wasn't great in that fourth quarter, but what do you expect? That's an insane ask for a young kid who doesn't have that much experience to do. And then Hecklinski did not get to play a whole lot either. He would end up being the backup later in the year. He had a rushing touchdown in that blowout win over Minnesota. Didn't get to see too much. I like a lot of what I see from Hecklinski. The size is obviously the big question. I think he's 5'11". And they always say I don't like feeding into the narrative, but when you look at successful NFL quarterbacks, it does matter. The height does matter with those guys. Like Drew Brees is a very limited exception for great quarterbacks who are on the shorter end. So can Hecklinski overcome that? I think he can, especially in college, especially at Iowa. So that wouldn't worry me too much, but it does worry some people. But whether it's Brown, whether it's Hecklinski, I do think that it's gonna be it'll be one of those two in week 1. I don't think we're going to see Trayden Bessinger at all in 2026. He's a redshirt candidate, and I'll maybe contend for 2027's starter. But Iowa's not hitting the portal. They are going to trust these two guys, and this is a big year, a huge year for Tim Lester. Year 3 of his offense. Like this is where you see a lot of offenses take that next step. I mean, I was taking a big step. They were at 14 points a game in 2023. Hideous hideous numbers in 2023. And they're up, I think, at 27 points per game last year in 2024. And they were up right around 30 in 2025 this year. Can you maintain that? Maybe even do a bit better, 31, 32 points per game. This is a big year for Tim Lester in Iowa City with a new quarterback, a new offensive line. What can you do? And I trust Tim Lester. And whoever the quarterback is, he's going to have weapons galore. Moulton, Williams, McNeil, LJ Phillips, Vanderzee, Howard, Diaz, DJ Vanami, Thomas Meyer. Heck, people are forgetting about him. But Ashton Ostrenga is back next year too. Coming off an injury. He's not going to be the starter. He may be the backup, but not the starter. But that was a guy with a lot of talent who got injured in week 2 in the first half. Didn't really get to see him play. That's another guy for Iowa to utilize. Offensive line, yes, you're losing Jones and Dunker and Stevens, big losses. But you got guys ready to come back in and replace them. Cade Peeper going to be there at center. Trevor Locke at left tackle. Jack Doechler at right tackle, most likely. Or Cannon Leonard, one of those two guys. I think Doechler was pretty good and limited action in 2025. Leighton Jones. Keep an eye on Leighton Jones. If you're looking for a breakout candidate for me offensively, Leighton Jones is probably going to start at left guard in place of Bo Stevens. I thought he was really good in action when Bo Stevens was hurt. Leighton Jones, keep an eye on him. He would not surprise me if he's an all-conference lineman for Iowa next year. I think he's going to be good at left guard. And so your O-line, maybe not a Joe Moore award-winning unit next year, but still pretty damn good in my opinion. So here we go. Lester and the quarterback. You got the weapons. You got the O-line. You have a bit of an easier schedule. What are you going to do? We're going to find out a lot about this offense. Can you continue to take steps forward, steps up in 2026? I think that they can, but we'll have to see. Oh, my goodness. I'm going to wrap things up here a few minutes early on Iowa Primetime Live here tonight. Thank you all. We had a ton of people in watching tonight, tuning in. I really appreciate it. It's been a blast getting to do this show throughout the regular season and now into the off season. And there's a lot of really exciting things happening at the Voice of College Football. A lot of really, really fun things happening. So I'm excited to be a part of that. I'm excited for the future with this show, Iowa at the Voice of College Football. And for those of you wondering, yes, I am planning and I'm hoping to have Josh on the show at some point in the coming weeks to talk about Iowa's 2025 season, their portal class, the 2026 season, to break it all down. Very soon, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll have him on to talk about everything Iowa related. But until then, I am going to sign off for the night. Thank you all for tuning in to Iowa Primetime Live, Iowa at the Voice of College Football, brought to you by FanDuel. And I will talk to all of you next Thursday, same time, same channel. But until then, have a great night. And as always, go Hawks.